Good Wednesday evening to you. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining More Sports and Les Levine. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine tonight. The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff, will be along to talk some Browns football. Later in the show, Stephen Means, Buckeyes beat reporter, will join us from Columbus to talk all things Buckeyes, including Urban Meyer heading to the Jaguars. We begin tonight talking about the Browns and the game against Kansas City. Let's welcome in the D-Man, Dennis Manoloff. And Dennis, I've said it. Some people agree, some people disagree. I really think this was an opportunity that slipped through the Browns' hands to win this and get to the AFC Championship game.
Dave, you are 100% correct. What is it Mike Hargrove once said, or maybe still says, about the 97 World Series loss? I'll let you know when I get over it. I'll let you know when I get over this one, Dave. That's a devastating loss. I don't care about, how it's been spun and all the cuddly little America's team had a really nice year. Yeah, okay, fine. When I step back, I recognize the Browns checked a lot of boxes this year, but they had every opportunity to go to the AFC Championship game, and they blew it. Sorry, they blew it. I don't want to use the CHOKE word, but they screwed this one up big time, because when you only have to face Patrick Mahomes for 2.5 quarters because he exited because of a concussion, and Chad Henne is the replacement, and the game was winnable when Henne came in. In other words, he didn't come in when the Chiefs were up 30. He came in when the Chiefs were up 19-10, and that continued drive made it 22-10. You have to win that game. You have to beat Chad Henne, and the Browns failed to do so, both offensively and defensively in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, the surprising thing was in the first half, they were not able to do anything offensively. They had 3 possessions, and I was really surprised. This offense, run offense, which I think is one of the best in football, just couldn't run the football. It was maddening.
Dave, riddle me this. Your strength as a team is clearly your offense. The Browns, let's say.
Yep.
The Browns' strength is clearly its offense. And you're on the road and you're facing an electrifying offense, an offense led by the best quarterback in the NFL. Why in the world would you defer after you won the toss? I know head coaches are in love with defer. We want to get the 2-for-1, the end of the first half and the start of the second half. Not Sunday, you don't. You don't want to give the ball to Patrick Mahomes and that video game offense after a week off for them. They were off, they had to bye. They're rested and ready to go. They're faster than you are. You know that already. Their speed is better than yours, especially when it's their offense against your defense. And they're at home. What did you expect was going to happen? Mahomes was going to go 3 and out? No, they go right down the field and score. Yes, they missed the extra point, thankfully. But you're down 6-0, and you're chasing the rest of the game. I never will understand that decision by Kevin Stefanski. By the way, when I step back and I appreciate the Browns season as a whole, of course I appreciate Kevin Stefanski. He's been a breath of fresh air. I've been one of his biggest proponents. But I'll tell you what, Dave Bacon, he didn't have one of his better games on Sunday. He foul-tipped it, to use a baseball analogy. I mean, I'm a little concerned, I got to say, when I look at Kevin Stefanski's history of play calling in the playoffs, and I include the final game of the regular season for the Vikings in 2018 when he was interim OC and the Vikings needed to win to get into the playoffs. That game was a terrible offensive game for the Vikings, and they wound up losing, and the Eagles pinched them out with a 9-7 record to get into the playoffs in the NFC. Then the following year, which was last year, he had one decent playoff game against the Saints, but then he had a terrible game against the 49ers in the divisional round. And then this year, I thought he had a very mediocre play calling game against the Chiefs when all you needed, Dave, was 23 points. That's all you needed from that offense with those skill players and you only got 17. So I'm a little bit concerned about Kevin Stefanski calling plays in big games.
You know, I don't have an issue really with him deferring. The issue I have more than anything is the Browns missed too many tackles. There were multiple times in that first drive where if somebody just makes the tackle, they get off the field and they get the ball back. Nick Chubb, God love him, he's had a great year and, wonderful player, dropped some screen passes that, you look and there were a lot of green where he could have turned those into big plays. So they just didn't play well. And I don't know if it was, a hangover from the big win, but I thought they were a pretty good team. I thought that was a winnable game for them. I will say that.
Well, Dave, to your point about the missed tackles, we've seen the Browns defense miss tackles a lot this year.
Yep.
And that kind of underscores my point. Clearly, the Browns offense is the strength of its team. And the Chiefs could say, hey, our defense gets disrespected because you talk about our offense a lot. But in the Chiefs' case, the offense is the strength of their team. That's why I would not want to defer and give the Chiefs a chance to put me in a 6 or 7 point hole right out of the gate, which is exactly what happened.
Yeah, without question. Andrew Berry addressed the media today, and one of the topics was the season, and in particular, that Chiefs game.
I think it's natural, Mary Kay, for everybody to feel a little bit of disappointment. I won't lie that it stung on Sunday night. It stung into Monday. And it's probably just recently worked its way fully through my system. So, I guess reflecting back on the game, ultimately we just, we were unable to, make the critical plays in big moments that would allow us to advance. A huge credit to Kansas City and, Andy Reid and his staff. They did a phenomenal job, but it certainly gives us something to aspire to as we enter the offseason. And certainly doesn't take away from what the group was able to accomplish, throughout the season.
Andrew Berry talking about the season and that Kansas City loss. And, D-Man, you can tell he's disappointed. I'm sure if I'm a player on that team, I'm looking at it and kind of saying, boy, we let an opportunity get away from us.
Yes, David. And I'm not going to go so far as to say the Browns should have won because that would be disrespectful to the Chiefs, even the Chiefs team that has Chad Henne for a quarter and a half. But they could have won. They easily could have won. And, we think about that. I mean, here it is. 22-17 is the score. You're down 5 if you're the Browns. You got the ball, 1st and 10 at the 20, with 8 minutes to go in the game. It's all there in front of you. You have the number 1 overall pick in 2018 at the quarterback position, a guy who's been playing really well. You have Jarvis Landry. You have Donovan Peoples-Jones. You have Rashard Higgins, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Austin Hooper, I'm sorry. And then David Njoku, who was playing well in that game. You have enough, and the O-line, admittedly banged up at left tackle, but a good O-line, a really good O-line. That's where you have to win the game. You know what happens in that possession? 7 plays, 12 yards. So they punt the ball. All right, maybe they should have tried to go for it on 4th and 9, but okay, fine, they punt. Now all you need to do on defense is stop Chad Henne on a 3rd and 4 and a 3rd and 14. You failed to do it both times. Yeah, you got 13 and a half on the 3rd and 14. But that allowed him to go for it on 4th down. You get another gift from Andy Reid. He doesn't go under center on 4th and inches. He goes for a shotgun with Henne. So you can take away the sneak now. And they're not running the ball because he's the only one in the backfield, as far as I can remember. So it's either going to be a quick throw or a pooch punt. And what do? They give up a pass to Tyreek Hill. So the offense spit the bit with 8 minutes to go, and then the defense couldn't get Chad Henne off the field, and that's your ball game.
Yeah, and we got a voicemail of truth and reason, so fans chance to let us know what they were thinking, and this one comes from Billy on this game against the Chiefs.
My name is Billy G. I live in Florida. I've been born and raised in Cleveland. I've been a fan since 1949, 1950 time frame. So I've seen the good and the bad. But let me tell you something, Les. This game, they should have won this game. That helmet to helmet was one of the most flagrant hits I have ever seen without a flag. That's all I can say. You know, it just seems like I can go back like yesterday. Ernest Biner with that fumble going into the end zone. Man, I was sick for 6 months after that. But it's just like, I swear, this freaking thing just drives me crazy sometimes because I love this team so much, you know. But anyways, hey, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. You have a great day. Bye bye.
All right, Billy, and that's a little bit of perspective, but the helmet to helmet, I get it. The ironic thing about that, I've said it earlier in the week, if that's a college game, you can review it. It's targeting, and it's a penalty, and the dude's thrown out of the game. Now, that's not going to happen in the NFL, but it should be reviewable. If you are truly going to thump the tub for player safety, you should be able to review plays that affect a guy's head.
Dave, you're absolutely right, and I don't use excuses as I watch Cleveland teams, and I'm not using it here. But the fact of the matter is, Daniel Sorensen led with the crown. It was spearing into the side of Higgins' head, and you could make a pretty darn compelling case that the reason that Higgins lost control of the ball into the end zone for the touchback is because he got his bell rung illegally by Daniel Sorensen. So a terrible missed call. And as you say, bad job by the NFL that they don't have the ability to go back and fix that egregious of a miss. I wish the NFL would do what I've asked it to do for years and years and years, have an additional member of the officiating crew, because you talk about the officiating crew that's announced before the game. You add one more member and you put him or her in the press box or in a booth, with TVs, and basically that member of the crew is not even watching the game as much as watching TV. And if that member of the crew sees something like that, buzzes down to the referee and says, we need to hold on here. We've got in this case, an illegal use of the helmet on Daniel Sorensen. Boom, the referee holds up the game and they check it. I don't understand why that can't be the case in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree. They need to do something. There's all kinds of technology that exists. The other thing, though, is, again, Andrew Berry addressed a number of topics, and we'll be bringing those into play here tonight. And one of the ones that was very interesting was Baker Mayfield and, picking up that fifth-year option and then doing an extension. Andrew Berry talked about that today.
I think you guys, know me well enough at this point that in terms of contracts, I don't think that this is really the appropriate forum to really talk about those decisions. I think that that's something that's a little bit more personal to me, the player and the agent. What I can tell you is really I echo the comments I had last week with Baker. I think he did an excellent job this year, right? He led us to a first playoff appearance in eons. He got 12 wins, played winning football all year, developed a really strong relationship with Kevin and the offensive staff. And really, like I mentioned last week, he really grew before our eyes on a weekly basis, both on and off the field. So we're very, very pleased with him. Look, we wouldn't be where we were at the end of the season without his performance, and he had a really strong season.
And D-Man, when you look at that, there's no doubt they're going to pick up the fifth-year option. The extension
Correct.
is something that you don't have to do right away, and quite frankly, you feel really good about Baker. You want to see him this is the first time he's been a second year in an offense. So let's see what he does this year. I think it's going to keep going like that, and if it does, you will pay the man. But there's no need to do that immediately.
You're right, Dave. I liked what I saw from Baker Mayfield this year. He wound up in most metrics ranking in the top 12 at the very least in the NFL among his peers. So he's a guy that's worth investing in long term, at least as of now. You certainly pick up the fifth-year option. As you said, maybe you wait a little bit. But to me, he has shown all the signs of being able to take you where you need to go. He wasn't really the problem on Sunday as far as I could see. I mean, yeah, he was part of an offense that only scored 17 points, but I don't know that Mayfield was poor in terms of his performance on Sunday. And in other words, I'd list other guys ahead of him as culpable. But yeah, I like the Bake Show. I really do. The contract that's worth watching, Dave, in my opinion, is going to be Nick Chubb, because if you do invest in Baker and you think he's the man, you're going to pay him a lot. You're already paying Miles a lot for a while. And the question is, how valuable is Nick Chubb? I mean, we all like to say Chubb is all world. I'm not dumping on him just because he had a couple of drops or 3 drops in the Kansas City game. I'm simply saying that will the Browns proceed with caution where Nick Chubb is concerned when they look at, for example, what the LA Rams did with Todd Gurley and say, okay, the Rams, wound up regretting that. I think Nick Chubb is special, but I just wonder how much money you can allocate to running backs in today's game.
Yeah, without question. You know what? It's the first time this franchise has had those issues in a long, long time, so that's a good problem to have, figuring out how to pay good players. D-Man and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, an Odell Beckham Jr. update. We'll hear what Andrew Berry thinks about Odell, and we'll also hear some more on Odell, as well as how the Browns are going to go about building this roster as they move forward. More sports and less Levine. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions, or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Do you like Ohio State football? Would you like to get information from me, Doug Lesmerises, about Ohio State football without having to look at my face? We have got the plan for you. Become an Ohio State text subscriber through cleveland.com. You send a text, 614-350-3315. What do you get? 2, 3, 4 texts right in your phone every day about Ohio State football. Inside information, polls, voting, all kinds of things. You can be on our podcast. We take text subscriber questions on our Buckeye Talk podcast every week. If you really want to be involved with Ohio State football, in season or out of season, become an Ohio State text subscriber from cleveland.com. Send a text to 614-350-3315. 14-day free trial. What do you have to lose? $3.99 a month after that. 614-350-3315. I'll see you in your phone.
Tri-C is here for you. Now more than ever, you need a post-secondary education. So I encourage you to start your journey here at Tri-C. The majority of fall classes will take place online, but we've added a variety of formats to meet your learning needs, and we've taken many steps to keep you safe on campus. Whether you're ready to get started or your four-year plans have changed, Tri-C is where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. More sports and Les Levine continues. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine tonight. You see the number if you want to get involved. Odell Beckham Jr. rehabbing from that torn ACL is doing well. Posted some video of himself working out, and he looks very good. Now the question is, is the Browns' offense better with or without Odell Beckham Jr.? And Andrew Berry addressed that. And, the offense took off in the second half of the year. Odell happened to be out. Here's what Berry had to say on the situation.
In terms of, call it the first half and the second half of the season, I do think that there's just an element of our offense just evolved over the course of the year. I think part of that is just chemistry, time on task, you name it. I think that's really independent of Odell. I've said, multiple times, Odell's a good football player. He acclimated nicely with our program, with Kevin, with his teammates. And quite honestly, I just want as many good football players on the roster as possible. He's dynamic.
Andrew Berry talking about Odell Beckham Jr. rehabbing from his ACL. D-Man, when you look at that, I think Beckham would have made a difference in the Kansas City game. He would have opened up the field a little bit for the run game, would have at least threatened Matthew so that Matthew couldn't cheat up like he did.
David, once again, I agree with you. And I've made it known I'm not the biggest Odell Beckham Jr. fan. I think he's a lot of a lot of me first. But that said, what you hear coming out of the Browns locker room is that he is the teammate's teammate, the consummate pro. We know his work ethic is great. I've never questioned that. I've just always wondered, when he's out there, is he worried about his touches as opposed to winning games? His teammates would swear that all he cares about is winning. All right, if I'm going to take the teammates at the word, and Beckham, of course, says the same thing, I would like to see Odell Beckham Jr. back here next year if he can, quote unquote, take the top off the defense and keep defenses honest, as you spoke about with Kansas City. It was pretty obvious to anybody who was watching that the Kansas City Chiefs had a speed advantage over the Browns on both sides of the ball. Now, when you're looking at the Chiefs' offense, you say, well, of course they're going to have a speed advantage because they have Tyreek Hill, who's the fastest man in the world, it seems. So that's going to distort things a little bit. But even defensively, you could see how the Chiefs were able to go sideline to sideline or close a lot quicker than the Browns were. Part of it was their own speed, but another part of it is our receiving core as constituted on Sunday, or not the Browns receiving core as constituted on Sunday just didn't have burners. I mean, Jarvis is not a burner, Peoples-Jones is not a burner, and Hollywood Higgins is not a burner. And Baker Mayfield's degree of difficulty on a lot of his throws to those guys has been, higher than it should be. So the Browns do need as much weapons as they have, as many weapons as they have offensively. They need a burner at wide receiver, somebody somewhere. And if Beckham can prove it's him coming off of the major knee surgery, then so be it.
Yeah, I would agree. You not only take the top off, it stretches it out. It makes you defend the entire width of the field and the length of the field as well. Well, I had said that yesterday about I thought Beckham would really make a difference. And we have another voicemail of Truth and Reason. Ron, who doesn't necessarily agree with me.
Last night, a comment was made that the Browns needed a long ball threat of Odell Beckham back. I agree we need a long ball threat, but Odell with his strong personality and having Baker Mayfield with his strong personality, I don't think that combination will mesh together well ever and will disrupt the progress of the team. We need a player like Landry with long ball threat potential. Hopefully something can be worked out.
All right, that's Ron. And
wait, Dave, can Brian please play the first 15 seconds of Ron and tell me what legendary Cleveland Indian does that sound exactly like?
Hi, Dave. This is Ron Meyer. Last night, a comment was made that the Browns needed a long ball threat.
Who is that, Dave? From the great Bob Feller. I swear that was Bob Feller if I didn't know any better. Oh, my goodness. He sounds exactly like him.
Now, here's what I would say, though, in answer to Ron's thing. I can't argue that Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham have not developed the chemistry. they really haven't had a lot of time on the field together. You know, the first year Beckham was really coming back from an injury and didn't go to OTAs, and they didn't get the time in. This year there was no preseason. So I get it, but I think you're putting 1 and 1 together and coming up with 11 if you say they just can't develop chemistry. I think you need to be on the field to develop chemistry, and they just haven't had enough time on the field.
Yeah, you can make a case both for and against Baker, with Beckham without, because with him, as you said, Dave, he really, they haven't had time to develop chemistry. They certainly haven't had time under Kevin Stefanski to develop chemistry. Beckham was doing his job in Cincinnati when, Baker threw the pick, and then Beckham tried to run the interceptor down and wound up tearing up his knee. So no fault of Beckham there. On the other hand, you could say that it's not necessarily a coincidence that that Mayfield threw 2 picks the remainder of the year after Beckham went down, and you say, okay, well, he didn't have to worry about force feeding Odell, and he was able to, spread it around. And if one guy didn't get a lot of touches in a particular game, he didn't have to worry about perhaps getting, somebody in his ear saying, hey, you got to get me the ball. You got to get me the ball. Now, that assumes or presumes that Beckham does that. I thought he did, but his Browns teammates swear that he doesn't. So in the absence of finding some rookie phenom, or some free agent or a guy on the draft who runs a 4.2 40 that can help you, why not run Beckham out there next year and see what happens?
Yeah, I think it opens up, slip screens and all kinds of things in this offense too, that you have to have a guy like Beckham to make them work and make them effective. The other thing is, so Andrew Berry addressed, building this roster out and where they want to go. The question posed to Andrew Berry was, are you concerned? Do you have to find a way to stop guys like Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, because the Browns are now in that echelon where they're trying to move up to the top in the AFC. And the question is, do you tailor what you're doing to the top teams in the AFC you're trying to close? And here's what Andrew Berry had to say.
When we really go into offseason planning and roster build, it's not to build a team to defend against one individual player, or quite honestly, one individual team. There are 31 other organizations, NFL teams that are all highly competitive. And ultimately, we have to beat all 31 if we're going to reach our ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl. So our focus is really just putting together the best team, possible that we can year in and year out, as opposed to maybe catering it to any specific.
And D-Man, you have to like the answer by Andrew Berry. That's the right answer.
Correct. I was shaking my head when you were posing it, and I'm agreeing with Berry. You do not tailor your team to beat a particular team. Think about the Indians. They won't admit it publicly, the guys who were here back then. But remember when the Tigers were dominating the AL Central in the early 2000s and into the 2010, 11, 12 in that area? What was the situation? You were sitting there going, oh, man, the Indians have got to match up with these Tigers power right-handers and whatnot, and let's load up on left-handed hitters. No, it wound up not working. You don't want to chase one team and try to beat one team, because especially in the NFL, not for long. There's a reason why NFL stands for not for long, for a variety of reasons, not just injury attrition, but in another case, you don't know from year to year which team you're going to be facing. I mean, it's a single elimination all the time. You're not positive that a team is going to be back year over year. NFL repeat champions or Super Bowl repeat champions don't happen very often, certainly not in the last 30 years. So if the Browns were all geared up to try to beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, then they could easily stumble against Josh Allen and the Bills or some other team that we haven't even thought of.
The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff, and I are going to take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll look forward. We'll look at some free agents and take a look at what areas the Browns should look to improve. More sports and Les Levine. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
A friend of mine brought up Nature Stone.
Our floor was not a nice garage floor. It was cracked and dirty and messy all the time, and it's just pretty. It's a pretty garage floor.
You could tell they really cared about what they were doing. They did an excellent job.
There's a room of lovely people here that have been so nice to us and so great, and such great service from the guys who did the floor, and we just really appreciate that.
And I highly recommend it.
Schedule your free cost estimate today at naturestone.com. It's not just a floor. Wow, it's Nature Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to More Sports and Les Levine. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine tonight. The D-Man will be joining us as well. Let's take a look at the free agents, the guys that are not under contract for the Browns, and let's bring in the D-Man. Dennis, Olivier Vernon tore up his Achilles, so that's that factors in. Who on this list of guys that are able to go elsewhere would you really want the Browns to bring back? Are there a couple that are, we really want him back?
Yes, I would love to see Ogunjobi back. I would like to see Hollywood Higgins back. And other than that, I'm not desperate for any of those guys. Olivier Vernon, I'm a little skeptical. He had a really good year. In my opinion, was the best Browns defensive player in the second half of the season because Miles had been hit with COVID, and when he came back, he wasn't the same, and Denzel was out. So Vernon played well this year, and he's going to get paid. It won't be where every team in the league sits there and says, well, you got to prove it first coming off your injury. He's going to get paid. I just don't think that the Browns are going to be the ones to pay him. I worry that Ogunjobi is going to walk out the door. I'm worried that his price tag is going to be too high. And you heard that Hollywood Higgins, that the Browns were maybe working on an extension with him. I hope that was true. I think Higgins is a really good, I wouldn't say complimentary piece. Yeah, he's complimentary to the one or the two. I mean, he's a solid 2 to 3 receiver, and I think he can help you win games.
Well, the thing that Andrew Berry addressed was, Olivier Vernon coming off his injury, as well as how they measure, trying to keep their own guys as they look at free agency and what contracts might be.
I had a good conversation with Ovi actually just yesterday, and I'm heartbroken for him because he did play so well down the stretch and then didn't get a chance to enjoy the playoffs, the playoffs with us, at Pittsburgh and at Kansas City. I guess maybe the way I would answer that question, Nate, and this probably pertains to really all of our free agents. We'll deal with it, really as it goes. You want to retain as many good players as possible. In some situations, it ends up being the right fit. In other situations, it doesn't. But at the same time, that's something that we have the next several weeks to work through. And we really do our best to maintain transparency and good communication with all the guys who have contracts expiring, and we'll continue to do that and work through those as more of what I would call the economic unknowns become known as we get into February and March.
And what Andrew Berry's talking about is the salary cap. The NFL and the Players Association have to agree on what that cap number is, and that will affect it. But again, everybody has a price, and the good thing is this franchise hasn't had a problem with good players and second contracts, and they're going to start having that, that's what football teams have to deal with.
That's true, David. Let me ask you this, though, and this is absolutely no knock on our media by any stretch. I love everybody in our media, and it is a difficult job. But when was the last time you ever heard of a front office executive say, you know what? Our contract for this guy is going to be 5 years for $85 million. And we're really working on this contract that's going to be 3 years for $36 million and a fourth-year option. I mean, they never, ever, ever talk turkey about contracts I mean, it has to be asked. I understand that's part of the deal. But you're never going to get an Andrew Berry or any of these GMs to talk about what the terms of the contracts are, who's in line to get what. That's just kind of an interesting sidelight. But yeah, the Browns are going to start to find out how they're going to have to figure out now how to deal with second contracts, and that's a sign of a team that's on the rise.
Well, the other thing is you have to feel pretty good just given what happened in the offseason last year. Andrew Berry seems to very much have a plan and will stick to the plan. And you're going to have to tweak the plan and mess with the plan, and the plan's going to get twisted and turned. And you have to feel better about this front office than you have in a long time with the folks in Berea.
Yeah, I mean, I trust. Again, I came on the show today, Dave. I was running hot about the Chiefs game. I'm still going to be grinding about the Chiefs game for a long time until the Browns get to the AFC Championship game. But as I said, when you step back, you look at all that they accomplished this year. And one of the reasons that the Browns were as successful as they were is the front office paradigm led by, Paul DePodesta, the chief strategy officer, and then the general manager, Andrew Berry. And then the third leg of the Ivy League trifecta is Kevin Stefanski, the head coach, who, by the way, I like a lot. And I think he's going to be a really good head coach in the league. I just wondered, should he not think about offloading the play calling to Alex Van Pelt? I know it won't happen, certainly in 2021, but I think he should at least think about it and become more of a CEO, more of an overseer of the franchise. But this team is in good hands. This organization is in good hands. And you've got to figure that these smart people are going to know how to utilize the cap and how to figure out the roster.
Before I let you go, final question: what's the takeaway from this year? It was a year that was really strange. What do you take away from it, and how should Browns fans feel? Put that in perspective.
Well, yeah, the 30,000-foot view of this is the Browns made a ton of progress, huge building blocks to set themselves up for the future. They actually won a high amount of games, which was so revelatory. I mean, they hadn't won 11 since 94. They got to the playoffs. They didn't just get to the playoffs. They won. They beat the evil empire in their building, the Steelers. They did make it competitive with the Chiefs, although I think if Mahomes played the entire game, it might not have been, because the Browns really weren't ready for a fully loaded Chiefs team. But they did blow that opportunity. That said, you made so much progress, it's hard to dog the year, and say, wow, it was a bad year because they only got to got through the divisional round. So many more positives and negatives. A lot of questions answered about various personnel on the roster, including, I don't know if there were that many questions about Baker Mayfield. Some people had him. I think he's answered most of them, if not all of them. For some people, he is a really good piece going forward. So a lot of optimism is warranted. But I will say this, Dave. Next year, the standard is going to be different. All right, just getting to double-digit victories is not going to be enough. Just getting into the playoffs is not going to be enough. Just winning a playoff game is not going to be enough. The standard will be much higher next year. But you know what? I can't wait to see what this organization has in store because I like the direction it's moving.
I would agree. And, I think the Browns as an organization welcome the higher expectations that undoubtedly will follow them next year. D-Man, as always, great insight. Appreciate the time. Thanks very much. The D-Man, Dennis Manoloff.
Thank you, Dave.
Well, time for us to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we head down to Columbus. Buckeyes beat reporter Stephen Means up next on More Sports and Less Levine. Stay with us.
We're living in uncertain times, but you don't have to put your future on hold. At Tri-C, you can move ahead while staying safe and saving money. The majority of fall classes will take place online, but we've added a variety of formats to meet your learning needs, and we've taken many steps to keep you safe on campus. Whether you're ready to get started or your four-year plans have changed, check out Tri-C's programs and resources, because Tri-C is where futures begin.
Well, hello, everyone. Let me tell you a little bit about Browns Football Insider. For only $3.99 a month, you can get text sent right to your phone each day from me, Dan Lobby, Scott Pasco, and Ellis Williams. In addition to that, you'll receive a Football Insider newsletter every day with special things from us, things that you won't see anywhere else on the site. You'll get breaking news, analysis, features, film breakdown, and things like that. Texting us directly gives you a great chance to cut through the clutter of Facebook, Twitter, other social media, and avoid the trolls. Also, it's the only way to get your questions on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. So why should you sign up? Try a 14-day free trial. You can cancel at any time. All it takes is one text, but you won't want to cancel. We have hundreds of subscribers join us over the last year. They love it and have stayed with us. We're seeing the Football Insider community grow every week, and it's only $3.99 a month, which is less than 14 cents a day. What I like most about Football Insider is the opportunity to connect with you one-on-one and really communicate with you. So how can you become a Football Insider? You can click on cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. Or easier yet, text me at 216-208-3965. Again, that's 216-208-3965.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family warm this winter,
here, let me show you how this works.
It takes Bryant.
Bryant. Whatever it takes.
And to keep your family comfortable, it takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling. Find them at smiley1.com.
More sports and Les Levine continues. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine tonight. Time to turn our attention to the Ohio State Buckeyes. The guys at Ohio State have declared for the draft or declared their intentions to return to Ohio State. Let's take a look at this list, and you see Field, Sermon, not a surprise for either of those guys. Let's bring in Stephen Means, Buckeyes beat reporter here for cleveland.com as well as the pages of the Plain Dealer. Stephen, has anybody on this list surprised you? Was there a guy that stayed that you thought might have, a guy that went that you thought might have stayed?
Yeah, I don't know why Chris Olave is back on this roster. I'm just not getting it. I've had a conversation with him before about what he wanted to do in the 2020 season. Obviously, avenge the Clemson loss and such, but we also talked very shortly about the NFL draft and stuff like that. I just thought with the way he played and the way he's progressed the last 3 years that he was going to be a first-round draft pick. And I don't know what his draft grade was when he got it back or what they've sold him on to come back here, but I was not expecting it at all. I actually texted my coworkers, Doug Maurice and Nathan Barrett, when it happened. Well, that was shocking. Yeah, that is the one guy on the list where he made the complete opposite decision of what I thought he would make. I thought Tommy Togiai could be either or. Now, him leaving does hurt that defensive defensive line room, especially on the interior. But Chris Olave, 100%. I am not sure why he's back.
Well, that's a good thing for Buckeyes. They'll have a receiver. Who will be the guy throwing him the football? Not a surprise. Fields expected to go really high in the first round, potentially second or third overall. But who is the quarterback that everybody will be keeping their eyes out for in Columbus?
Yeah, it's a three-man battle there. Two guys who are in their second year who learned behind Fields last season, and C.J. Stroud and Jack Miller. Then obviously the true freshman five-star quarterback coming in, Kyle McCord. Those three guys are going to battle it out all spring. And if history kind of repeats itself here, and we go back to 2018 when you had a Joe Burrow, Tate Martell, Dwayne Haskins situation, I'm not going to say who is going to transfer after the spring, but I don't think all three of these guys will be here when we're talking next year. I do think we'll see a situation where someone will be the clear third guy on that totem pole and probably exit and go elsewhere, while the other two guys will stay and battle it out through fall camp. But I do think right now the momentum seems to think that C.J. Stroud, the kid from California who worked his way into being a top 50 recruiter, late bloomer, and got a scholarship late from Ohio State, seems to have the inside track to be the starter there. But whoever it is between those three guys, between Jeremy Ruckert at tight end, Chris Olave, and Garrett Wilson at wide receiver, along with a ridiculous amount of five-star talent in that wide receiver room, they're going to have plenty of talent, plenty of weapons to give the ball to.
So you're saying the quarterback position's in pretty good hands wherever it goes at Ohio State. They'll find somebody that can work, that Ryan Day can work with.
Yeah, he talks about a lot. He wants to turn Ohio State to QBU. We hear that with the defensive backs and with the defensive line all the time. He wants to do that with the quarterback room, and he's recruited three pretty good quarterbacks to do it with, and now he'll get his first chance to build a quarterback from scratch, because he got here and J.T. Barrett was a starter, and obviously Dwayne Haskins had been here for a couple of years before he took over for the starter as a starter, and then Justin Fields was a transfer. This is going to be the first kid that he took as a recruit, brought him in and developed him from scratch, kind of similar to what we saw with Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma this past season for Lincoln Riley.
So how good are the Buckeyes? On paper, how does this team look? Is it figured to be what you would expect from Ohio State, or how do they look?
I think I'll confidently put money on, I'm not going to actually do this, I don't gamble, but I would put money on they're going to be the best team in the Big Ten by far. Everything outside of that is up in the air. I think they could be right back in the mix and be playing for a national championship again. Obviously that depends on how that quarterback develops over the next 9 months until August gets here. And it also depends on, can they replace some of these guys on defense, whether it's Tommy Togiai or the three starting linebackers who have been the linebackers at Ohio State since I was 2 years old, basically, it feels like. And then obviously Sean Wade wasn't the best cornerback in the world, but he was still a quality cornerback, and you have to replace him. So can they reload in the secondary at the linebacker position? And I think this offense will be fine. I think this is a team that should be right back in the thick of things and be in the college football playoff next year.
Who are some names to listen out for on that defensive side of the ball that you think could show?
Yeah, it starts at the defensive line with Tyreek Smith and Zach Harrison. Both of those guys have been rotational guys the last 2 years. Both of those guys top 50 recruits coming out of high school. It's time for Tyreek Smith especially. This is his fourth year in the program. It's time for him to maybe step up and kind of fill that role of what the Bosa brothers and Tyreek and Chase Young were. Not saying he's going to be what those guys were, because that was ridiculous, but they need to be in the scrimmage field. Somebody needs to have at least 7 sacks next season. And then the linebacker, it's Court Williams missed this entire year with a torn ACL, but I think he's a guy who steps into a role and probably shines in that role. But of course, you've got Taraja Mitchell and Kayvon Pope and Dallas Gant, guys who have been waiting their turn at the linebacker spot to finally get an opportunity. I think you see those guys maybe flash and show some things. And in the secondary, Josh Proctor. I thought he would be the starting single high safety this past year. That didn't happen until late in the season, but he did have some moments where he caused some turnovers and probably could have had more interceptions had he been able to catch the ball. I think that's a guy who might pop and be a Blake Hookers type situation where he has 4 or 5 or 6 interceptions next year because he's that type of playmaker.
Stephen Means, Buckeyes beat reporter here on cleveland.com, as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. When we return, we'll get Stephen's thoughts on Urban Meyer heading to the Jacksonville Jaguars, what success he might have. More sports and Les Levine will be right back. Stay with us.
Shelly, we really need to get Nature Stone in our basement.
I know, Herb, and it would look great in our laundry room, too.
Coach, only Nature Stone is perfect for your basement and laundry room because it never needs replaced like damp carpet and moldy tile. That's why it comes with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty.
And Nature Stone is absolutely beautiful and so easy to clean.
Schedule today at naturestone.com and get up to half your basement or laundry room floor free. Hurry, offer ends soon.
Shelly, Nature Stone is perfect for our laundry room and basement.
I told you.
It's not just a floor. Wow,
it's Nature Stone.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Welcome back to More Sports and Les Levine. Dave Bacon filling in for Les Levine tonight. Let's welcome back in Stephen Means, Buckeyes beat reporter here for cleveland.com, as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer. Stephen, Urban Meyer to Jacksonville, were you surprised, and do you think he will have success at the NFL level?
I don't know if I was surprised coaching again. I might be surprised that he's coaching at the NFL level for the first time in his career. I just think when I think of Urban Meyer going to the NFL, I think about Nick Saban when he went 15-7 during his tenure with the Miami Dolphins. And one of the things that stood out was him talking about how in the NFL, it kind of works like socialism, where it's the worst teams get the best opportunities to get the best players, and the best teams have the worst chance to get the best players, which is not what Nick Saban is good at. He's good at, I coached a really good team that competed for a national championship, and then I just convinced all the best high school players in the country to come do it again. And that's what Urban Meyer's been really good at. He's one of the best recruiters of all time. And at the NFL level, you don't do that. You have to kind of work with what you have. Now, he's going to get Trevor Lawrence, so that's probably a good foundational piece to have there. But I don't know if a guy whose entire career has maybe been based in his ability to recruit top-level talent year in and year out and reload a team to compete for a national championship, I don't know how well that translates to the next level. But also, there's a big difference between coaching a 19 and 20-year-old kid and coaching a 28-year-old grown man who's got kids of its own. So I don't know. I might be wrong. It might work out because it's Urban Meyer, but I am a little skeptical because we've seen the greatest college coach of all time go to that level and not necessarily find success.
Let's shift gears just a little bit. Buckeyes hoops starting to make some move. I know they lost, so they were in the top 25, a loss earlier in the week. What is the key to this, and how good can this Buckeyes basketball team be?
I think their ceiling is an Elite Eight. I think they've got a lot of talent. They're versatile on offense with a lot of different guys who can score. It's not just the Caleb Weston show anymore. I think they're a sound defensive team, but things are going to get rough here. They've got Wisconsin on Saturday. Iowa is still on the schedule. Michigan State is still on the schedule. Michigan is still on the schedule. So I think they've been better this year than they've been the last 2 years, and I think there's more that they can show. But I do think it was very important that they needed to win that Purdue game last night, and they didn't do that. They need every win they can get, and arguably the defense conference in the country. And so we're going to find out just how good they are. I think I know where their ceiling is. I think it's the Elite Eight, but also I think their floor might be they lose in the first round just because, this is basketball and it's a game of rounds and things happen. So I think the next month we're going to find out just how good this Ohio State team is when you're playing that many teams who are ranked in the top 15 in the country.
What are some of the keys? Some of the things they need to do well to get to that ceiling of the Elite Eight? What do you see as keys for this success for these Buckeyes?
Well, first you got to get C.J. Walker back. He's been dealing with an injury in his right hand, which isn't his shooting hand, but still your point guard. You need both hands to be able to operate out there. He's got some torn ligaments in that hand. So when they get him back, it'll help things out because you won't have Justice Sueing, who's a small forward playing point guard. He can go back to his more natural position. I think they got to get more efficient with their shot selection. They're a great three-point shooting team. That's no doubt. They're at 40% for the last 4 games, but they also need to be able to make shots within the arc and be able to make shots at the rim, and they don't do that as well. And that's part of the reason why they lost last night is they were making a lot of threes, but they weren't making a lot of anything else. And so they need to be able to diversify the ways that they can score the basketball. And they have that. They have guys who can do that. They just need to become more reliable. They need to find a way to make up for the fact that they don't have a lot of size. They have versatility on the perimeter. E.J. Liddell can play 3 or 4 positions. Justice Sueing can play 3 or 4 positions. Seth Towns, as he continues to get healthy, can play 3 or 4 positions. But they don't – you lost Caleb Wesson, which is a good thing for your offense because it allows you to diversify some things. But it does hurt you on the defensive end because you don't have a guy who can maybe go up against a Luke Garza, who's one of the best players in the country as a big man. They don't have that guy. So they have to find ways to make up for that. And maybe it needs to be more of a team rebounding situation. They need to find a way to team defend guys like that as well. So you lost some things with size, but you added some things with offensively on the perimeter. So they need to make up for some of those things that they lost.
Playing a little different, up-tempo a little bit without Wesson and with what you say a lack of size. Do you expect them to try to run it a little bit more?
Yeah, they're great in transition because I think one of the things they have, they were great in transition last year as well. It's just the problem was when you have a guy as good as Caleb Weston, you have to get him the ball, which means you don't get a lot of opportunities to play in transition because you're waiting on him to get his slow butt up the court. This year, you don't have to wait on that. You can just go. And so if you get a guy like Justin Sueing who gets the ball off the glass on a rebound, he can take the ball. Dwayne Washington Jr. can take the ball off a rebound. Meechie Johnson, who's coming along, an Ohio kid, Cleveland kid at that, who is one of the best players in the country, early enrolled and is starting to find his way. He can take the ball up the court. So, yeah, I think a much more up-tempo team, a lot more of what Chris Holtmann wants to do. I think he loved having Caleb Wesson, and you understand that in the Big Ten you do need to have a post presence. But I don't know if that's the way Chris Holtmann wants to play. He wants to play this up-tempo style of basketball where there are 3 or 4 guys on the court who are a threat.
And you mentioned Meechie Johnson. That's a kid that, in theory, could be a senior in high school, early enrolled, and he's finding his way onto the court for the Buckeyes. Tell me a little bit more about how impressed you've been. I know he's only been there 2-3 games because the early enrollee started with this semester when it started.
Yeah, very impressed. That kid hasn't played basketball in 2 years. When you think about it, he tore his ACL his sophomore year of high school and has been rehabbing it since. The first time he actually played in a basketball game again was over the summer in July when he and fellow 2021 commit Kalen Etzler went and played in an AAU tournament up in Indiana, and that was his first run. So he basically came in here with very little basketball experience, just more of a guy whose reputation preceded itself because as a freshman, he put up 50 points in a basketball game. So, but he's coming along. They're very impressed with his knowledge of the game and the way he's picking up things very quickly. This has been a good thing for him. He's getting the season where he gets to learn behind C.J. Walker and Dwayne Washington Jr. how to operate in the Big Ten as a point guard. And the next year, that 2021-2022 season, he gets handed over the keys and he gets to take off full go.
Stephen Means, Buckeyes beat reporter here on cleveland.com, as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer, as always. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Stephen.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Stephen Means talking Buckeyes. That'll do it for this edition of More Sports and Less Levine. Tune in tomorrow night. Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter. Dan Lobby, Browns beat reporter, will be the guest. Join us then. Until then, stay safe. Have a great night, everybody.